If you had to double the number of leads that you got by next week, would you go right away to high volume? And if not, how do you figure out if you should be ramping up volume to drastically increase your outreach results?
Okay. When to use high volume, or is high volume appropriate?
Is high volume appropriate for you? Because the reality is sometimes it is, and yet sometimes it's not. And it's interesting to go through when is it right and when is it wrong? And is there something in between that's also
Got it.
worth using?
So it'd be an interesting episode for people who are currently doing high volume. Should they actually consider low volume? And people who are currently doing low volume, should they consider high volume?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about it.
And I'll be honest, I have a natural aversion to high volume campaigns. Why? Because at SalesGrid, we're the ultra personalized outreach. And frankly, I'll be dead honest, I cannot personalize 10,000 emails a day. It ain't happening.
And
yet,
is that quick mail is really good for scaling.
Yeah.
Volume.
What the hell?
High deliverability.
There you go.
So that's an interesting discussion. Let's have it.
Okay.
Because I've seen results with both places.
For sure. And I'm coming around now to this idea that you can actually find a lot of good moments to implement high volume campaigns. So first of all,
show you some examples. Actually.
Okay, let's go through examples, but let's figure out, like, I think the first question is, what's your TAM, your total addressable market, right?
Correct. That's how I will feel about it. Like if you have only 100 people, like don't go high volume. It's done in one day, not even. And then that's it. It's like, okay.
Very good. So let's stop here for a moment.
It's a follow-up high volume.
There you go. So what do you mean follow-up high volume?
Like you receive like 100 emails per prospect.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the only way to go high volume if you only got like,
Okay, so first off, here's an easy action item. If your market is, let's say, fewer than 2,000 prospects.
Yeah, I would think so. Like we had this discussion already a few days ago. I think we said like 1,500 to 2,000. Below that, I mean, like
you have to go low volume, which means you have no choice but to play in the realm of 15 to 25% reply rates. In order to do that, you need a great offer. I think you need lots of personalization. You need perfect deliverability. You probably need multi-channel. Okay, great.
Maybe even in-person conferences.
Right? There you go. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think in-person conferences are a lot of work. I don't like them.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think you can get lots of good sales in the pipeline without doing the in-person. But that's the idea. You play the low volume game, and that's where SalesGrid shines. And frankly, now it does not mean that that's where things end. And as we'll see, I think even if you're listening, you say, "Yeah, my market's small." I think there's probably buckets where you might do partnership campaigns that have quite a lot of players in the space that, right?
Yeah, here's an example. If you actually want to do link building, your space may actually be much bigger, right?
There you go. There you go. So give us some examples, Jeremy, of like, we've discussed when to go low volume. When should you go high volume? Let's talk TAM first.
Okay, well, that's basically your product address a certain part of the population that is pretty huge. Let's say you're addressing students, for example.
There you go. There you go.
Probably or like schools. There's quite a lot of schools in the world.
Okay.
Right.
So there's one simple bit of advice we can recommend right now, and it's if you have, let's say, more than 2,000 and hopefully a lot more, right? Like high volume typically means what?
Yeah, we talked about it. I think if your time is more than 10K, then you can start, considering like, okay, let's go higher volume. But in between, it's kind of like where it's a judgment call, right?
Or a mix.
Or maybe a preference, how you actually want to play the game.
Let me go one level further than just having 10,000 accounts in your market. Okay. I think high volume campaigns shine when you have 10,000 potential accounts or more, and it is difficult to know who is in an active buying cycle. When those two things come together, you're in the high volume world, baby.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, it's just too difficult to have confidence that when you reach out to a prospect, they're going to be for you. They're going to be, in this buying mentality. I don't know if we can share a couple industries. Do we even need to? Like, I think that's pretty clear.
The example of students is a good one. or schools. The interesting thing is that the type of campaign is also going to be different. As in, you're effectively looking to figure out like, hey, are you in the market for that? So that's the type of campaign you're going to do. Is this a priority for you this year? Is it like, you're not going to try to really highly, sell something to someone because they're not quite there
Good.
yet,
That's
right?
good. So compare that to low volume campaign. It may be, let's have a call to
You
discuss
have more
X.
information. Yes,
Mm.
people are more used to, go one-on-one and discussing and so on. And
Exactly right.
high volume is more like, is that something we should talk? Who is, in your department would be interested in that? Or
That's right. So you do sort of a needs assessment or a qualifying campaign.
exactly, qualifying campaign is a great one at high volume. Because
Exactly.
then you hand it over to your salespeople, and they will be the one who follow up with a subset, lower volume for a campaign.
I love that. So in short, you're using high volume campaign to get the sea of thousands and thousands of accounts for some of them to raise their hand, looking to take the next step down this road.
That's right. In fact, in quick mail, I think I shared that information with you. We have, we have plenty of clients, but the clients we looked at were like 40,000 emails every day. So you need to find those leads, right? It's not like if they're everywhere, but so you need to find like 40,000 people to contact every day.
Yeah.
And then if you have like, they have like about 5% reply rate, you need to handle them. And so you have an army of reply handler that is actually just every day just going.
There you go. And you have AI that helps you indicate a positive reply, which is important at that scale.
That helps.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to pause at like about the 6-minute mark now.
Yeah,
I don't have the timer in front. Maybe we're going to be reviewing or watching this video and seeing how wrong my estimate is. Maybe it's 7 minutes, but I want to pause and make a point that if you happen to find yourself with 20,000 potential accounts and you're going full in high volume, I think that's well and good. Follow delivery best practice,
sure.
but that does not mean that you don't have opportunities to do low volume campaigns. That does not mean that you don't have a couple hundred potential like VIP prospects that if you could get them having a conversation with you, you stand to gain a tremendous amount of business. So I think it's a failure to think only in terms of high or low volume. I think you have certain buckets like, okay, you get 20,000 schools in North America and Western Europe that can be sold to. Let's go there, high volume.
Right.
But we have this subset of, let's say, schools that use a competitor's tool. Right. And that's low hanging fruit. Maybe that they have a huge budget, a huge need. Take a different tact. Give them multi-channel, give them lots of personalization, go from a 5% reply rate to maybe a 20% reply rate, so that you've got the greatest chance to handle your VIP prospects properly. The hard thing, Jeremy, and I'm curious if I missed anything, the hard thing, I believe, is thinking about who are your VIP prospects that deserve a low volume campaign.
That's a great point. I think when you have like a big market, you're going to have pockets of opportunities. And those one may effectively be your low volume. That could simply be like, school that goes to an IT conference. Like I'm taking the conference again. You don't have to go to that conference, but at least it will be like those ones are interested, or they have an IT department or whatever it is. So you may be like saying like, okay, the TAM is huge.
Yeah.
Maybe pocket of things you can identify, and you won't be able to qualify the whole market.
Excellent.
But those ones actually would require will be better campaigns because you're more informed.
So when you say more informed, I hear that you've identified a buying signal.
Yes.
That group of accounts are showing you that they really are in the market. Let's give a concrete example. Imagine you're selling a tool that helps schools with, let's say, financial aid reimbursements. Okay.
Not Kevlar, Jack.
Oh God, that's bad. Off color. If you see that a group of schools is hiring a role that is going to specifically be in charge of making sure that students get their financial aid reimbursements quickly, that they're trying to solve this problem. I recommend a different approach for this smaller group, one that's going to ensure the highest reply rate possible. And a lot of times that does mean lower volume, higher personalization, and multi-channel, which is just harder to pull off at the high volume realm.
Yeah.
But it's fun because I think, frankly, like up until now, I haven't seen high and low volume play nicely together, but now it's becoming clear. What are we missing on this conversation so far, Jeremy, as we move to the?
I think we covered a lot of ground here, and I think so. This is the thing I will add is that your key strength, you as a unique person, Jack, is in building really advanced list building. And a lot of people will stop too quickly as to like, oh, well, our market is like cool. Okay, well, I'm going to consider it as high volume. But you always like teach me and show me that there is always a way to sub-segment things.
That's right.
And I think people will be well versed to go one more or two steps in their personalization, even if it left people on the side, like I mentioned, like identifying those pockets of opportunities. And that may not be buying signal, that may just be like, you know, schools just in America, but school in this state. And then you have specific campaign for maybe Florida school because of XYZ regulation, whatever it is, that will make them more likely to buy your thing. And then you end up with like that 2,000 people and say, okay, well, let's go low volume on those ones.
There you go.
And then you leave the rest, you know, in high volume. So a little bit more effort on this, and I think will lead to very positive results. So how can you do that in your company? Maybe you can have like one person like specialized to actually just go one more deeper volume, or like figuring out like, is there some ways we could use to actually qualify?
Yeah, the easy way, Jeremy, is study the positive replies and the accounts and people that have replied with interest, and try and understand where is the overlap. What do they have in common? A lot of times you can say like, wow, it looks like I'm dealing with someone who was recently hired for this role. It looks like they care a lot more. They're more open to a new solution. And the goal, the job of the sales leader, in this case, a strategist, would be to identify those buying signals, finding more companies that match those criteria, and give them the low volume effort that's going to produce.
That would be brilliant to end up here on the cast, but I got one more idea, which is you could simply just send a survey to your existing customers and say, you know, where do you guys, you know, get information about XYZ online? Is it a forum? Is it, you know, whatever? And so I like the idea that this is not a one-time effort. It's kind of a recurring one, right? And then with those surveys, then you can start identifying new pockets that you haven't thought of before. Maybe they go to this conference, maybe they'll go online to this forum, maybe they all, you know, go on LinkedIn, whatever it is. So I think
let's wrap there. Well said, Jeremy. All right, quickmail.com for your cold email tools, salesbread.com if you want one lead per day, and for everything else, just course.quickmail.io. Jeremy, great live in-person conversation here from Miami, Florida.
That's right.
Until next time.
Thanks, Josh.